My dad was suddenly arrested for fraud. Our family fell apart. Then, out of nowhere, my dad's boss moved into our house to help. I didn't buy it, so I investigated, and what I found changed everything. At 6:12 a.m. on a Thursday, I woke up to the sound of boots slamming through the front door. Not knocking, not doorbell, boots. Within seconds, our living room was full of agents. Dark suits, radios, gloves, my dad. Still in his worn-out Spider-Man pajama pants. Didn't even have time to grab his glasses. One of them shoved him to the floor. Another started reading charges I couldn't understand. Wire fraud, money laundering, federal investigation. My mom screamed, not like in the movies. It was raw, messy, like someone had cracked her ribs open and ripped something out. I stood at the top of the stairs. I didn't run down. I didn't scream. I just stared at my father as they pulled him to his feet. "Let me hug my daughter," he said. They ignored him. And then they were gone. 3 hours later, Mom was still shaking in the kitchen. She hadn't spoken since the ambulance left. They'd checked her blood pressure when she collapsed in the front yard. I tried asking questions. She didn't answer. And then, right before noon, the doorbell rang. She opened it slowly. The man on the other side wasn't a neighbor. He wasn't a lawyer. He was carrying 2 paper bags full of groceries. "Marina," he said softly. I came as soon as I heard. His name was Richard. I had never met him before, but the way he hugged my mother, one arm firm across her shoulders, the other resting on the small of her back, didn't feel like a coworker offering support. It felt like he knew exactly where he fit. That night, Richard stayed for dinner. I wasn't told. He was just there, cooking in our kitchen, using Dad's skillet, sipping from Dad's favorite mug. He'd brought herbal tea, said Mom liked it back in college. She nodded, didn't deny it. After dinner, he said he would stay just a night or two to help us get through this. My mom didn't argue. She'd barely spoken all day. By the next morning, he was wearing one of Dad's t-shirts, rolled up at the sleeves, like he'd been there for years. When I asked who he was, Mom just said, "An old friend." Later, I found out the truth. Richard was more than a friend. They dated in college for nearly 4 years. He was her first real relationship before my dad. He had proposed once. She had said no. He never got married. He worked his way up through the same firm where my father had spent 15 years. Quiet, ambitious, always one step behind my dad professionally, until the day my dad was arrested. Richard didn't just move into our home. He moved into the empty space that fear had carved out in my mother. While she sat on the couch in silence, Richard called our neighbors and said we were managing. While she cried behind closed doors, he told the firm she was staying strong. While I sat in my room writing letters I couldn't send to my dad, Richard was in the kitchen printing out paperwork to help get our affairs in order. By the end of the week, he had a drawer in the hallway. By the second week, he had a toothbrush upstairs. By the third, he had a therapist on the phone who said I might be dealing with delusional grief. No one asked me what I thought. No one noticed I stopped eating dinner. No one realized I had started sleeping in Dad's hoodie every night, hidden under the covers, whispering to the dark, "Come back. I know you didn't do it, but Richard did," and he smiled when he caught me whispering, like he already knew I was the only one left who still believed in my father. The week after my father's arrest, Richard became a fixture in the house. He did the groceries. He scheduled my mom's therapy sessions. He picked me up from school without asking. When the light bulb in the hallway flickered, he replaced it. When the air conditioner sputtered, he called the repairman before anyone else noticed. By Tuesday, he had linked his phone to our Wi-Fi and installed a new router for better speed. By Thursday, the password had changed. Mom didn't question it. She thanked him. He didn't sleep on the couch. He took the guest room and closed the door at night. No one ever said the word move in. It just happened, quietly, cleanly, like everything Richard did. One morning, I came down to find him making eggs. My dad used to make them runny. Richard made them dry, folded, precise. He placed a plate in front of me. "Eat up, kiddo. Big test today." "Right." I didn't answer. He used that word again, kiddo. It sounded like a cheap knockoff of something real, like he had watched old home videos and rehearsed the role of father figure in front of a mirror. I started noticing things, subtle at first. He reorganized the medicine drawer, labeled bottles, refilled my mom's prescriptions before they ran out. He rearranged the living room furniture. Said the old setup wasn't good for her posture. He fixed a squeaky hinge on my bedroom door. The next day, the door didn't close properly. He signed us up for a new family Spotify account. Dad's playlists were gone. One by one, every trace of my father was replaced, repacked, or overwritten. Neighbors began to whisper. At the grocery store, 2 women behind me in line spoke just loud enough. "That's the daughter. Poor thing. Her dad's in federal holding." And now the mom's already moved on. Wasn't he her boss or something? So fast. It's shameful. I didn't tell Mom. She had just started sleeping again. Thanks to the white pills Richard brought her each night with chamomile tea. That weekend, I found out Richard had changed my school emergency contact. It now listed him above my father. I only discovered it when the nurse called him first after I scraped my knee in gym. She's got a low pain tolerance, he told the office. Sensitive kid. I stared at him when he came to pick me up. He smiled, ruffled my hair like he'd known me for years. At home, I told Mom. He changed the form without asking. She paused, then shrugged. It's fine. He's helping. Later that night, I went looking for something in the garage. Old photo albums, the ones Mom used to pull out every Christmas. The box wasn't in its usual place. Instead, I found a cardboard container labeled Basement Purge with my dad's name scribbled on the side. Inside, his college hoodie, his slippers, his desk clock, his favorite mug, all packed neatly, taped shut. I carried it upstairs. Why are Dad's things in a box? Mom looked up from the couch. Richard's laptop on her lap. We need to make space, she said quietly. You boxed him up. It's just stuff. But it wasn't. It was him. That night, I put the hoodie back in my closet, hid the mug in my backpack, and wrote the date down in my notebook the day Richard erased the last piece of Dad from the living room. On Monday morning, Richard asked for access to my dad's office. He didn't barge in. He asked politely, said he was worried about the insurance paperwork, and that Mom might miss a deadline if someone didn't help her sort through it. She hesitated, just for a second, then handed him the keys. That afternoon, Richard removed the deadbolt on the office door and replaced it with a soft, close latch. So it doesn't slam anymore, he explained. Then he moved a portable shredder inside. The next day, Dad's briefcase disappeared. By Thursday, Richard had rearranged all the file drawers. He labeled new folders, tax, utilities, legal, old client work. Everything was neat, color-coded. Nothing looked suspicious. Unless you were the one who remembered that Dad used to keep backup USB drives taped behind the bottom drawer. When I checked that spot, the tape was torn, the drives gone. I didn't ask where they were. I already knew. Richard started spending 2 to 3 hours a day in that office, sometimes more. He installed a second monitor, plugged in an encrypted hard drive of his own. He told my mom, I'll help you with everything. Marina shouldn't have to dig through financial messes while grieving. He always said it calmly, kindly, like he was doing her a favor, and she nodded. Every time. I tried to get into the office one night after dinner. When he went out for a run, the door wasn't locked, but everything inside had been moved. Desk drawers resealed. The computer required a password. The paper shredder bin was full, and the trash had already been taken out. Richard began managing the mail. Every morning, he took the mailbox key before Mom even got out of bed. He'd bring in envelopes already opened, rubber-banded by category. He flagged items for Mom to sign later and tossed the rest in the bin. I checked once and found a legal notice addressed to Dad, marked time sensitive. It had been unopened. He said it was an old utility dispute, nothing worth worrying her about. By the second week, the smart TV was reset, the family laptop wiped and re-imaged. He said the old accounts weren't secure enough. Dad's Spotify playlists were gone, Google account disabled. Even the phone plan had been switched. New carrier, new family group, Dad's number was no longer part of it. At school, I started falling behind. My history teacher pulled me aside, said my homework was concerning. The tone, the content, too much focus on conspiracy, corruption, injustice. Your mom told us you're going through a phase, she added, that maybe you're not sleeping well. I wasn't, because I knew what Richard was doing. He wasn't just replacing my father, he was erasing him. When I told Mom about the missing USB drives, she frowned. I'm sure your dad took them to the office. He didn't. He kept backups here. I saw them. Honey, you're grieving. Your memory might be mixing things up. She didn't say it cruelly. She said it gently, like someone calming a child after a nightmare. And that was worse. The next day, Richard left a folder on the kitchen table labeled Observation Log. Inside was a spreadsheet. My sleep times, my moods, my screen usage, my eating habits, my statements. At the bottom, in his neat handwriting, increasing paranoia, possible fixation. Recommend escalation if behavior persists. He hadn't just convinced my mother I needed help. He was building a case, one day at a time. The first time I saw Richard panic. He was drunk. It was a Friday night. He came home late from a work dinner, smelling like expensive bourbon and ego. His coat was half on, half dragging. He muttered something about the Henderson account and a broken promise. Then he went straight into Dad's office and locked the door. Mom was asleep upstairs. I waited. 20 minutes passed. No sound, no movement. Then I heard the chair squeak, followed by low muttering. I crept to the door, pressed my ear against the wood. Should have wiped it sooner. Didn't think he'd have the nerve to wear the damn thing. A pause. Took it off myself. Stupid bastard. Then a drawer slammed. That was all I needed. I waited until Richard passed out on the study couch. One shoe still on. Then I slipped inside. The desk drawers were clean. Too clean. The shredder bin was empty. The monitors were off, but his coat was draped over the side of the chair. And in the pocket, I found it. Dad's smartwatch. The one I gave him last Christmas. The one I helped him set up. The one that had vanished the day he was arrested. It still had battery. 4%. Ugh. I opened the voice memo app. There was one file. Timestamp March 15th, the night before Dad was taken. I pressed play. This is Alan. If you're hearing this, I didn't get the chance to explain everything in time. Richard just left my office. He threatened to plant offshore transactions under my name if I didn't scrap the internal audit report. I told him no. I told him I was going to bring it to legal. He said by morning I'd be in handcuffs. He said Marina doesn't need to know, that he'll take care of her. I'm recording this now, just in case. Then I heard the door slam. Footsteps. Yelling. A struggle. Give me the watch. Alan, you think you're clever. Get off me. You just signed your own. Static, then silence. I stood there holding the watch, heart slamming so hard I could barely see straight. Then I heard the floor creak behind me. I turned. Richard stood in the doorway, awake, sober now, his eyes locked on the watch in my hand. Looking for something, kiddo? My fingers gripped the device tighter. He stepped inside, calm, door closed behind him with a soft, final click. You're playing with things you don't understand. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He was measuring. I backed toward the hallway. He didn't follow. Yet. That recording's not admissible. The metadata's off. Your dad set his clocks wrong. Remember? I didn't answer. He moved to block the doorway. You give me that watch. I forget this ever happened. You go back to school? You stop spiraling. No. One word. That's all I had. Then I ran. I bolted past him, shoulder clipped his side, sprinted to the garage, and slammed the door behind me. I jumped into Mom's car, locked the doors, fumbled for the charger, plugged in the watch. 1% battery. Screen flickered. I tried to copy the file to my phone. Transfer blocked. Parental controls active. My heart sank. Then the garage door opened. Richard stood there, backlit by the hallway, holding his keys, calm, measured. You can't win this, kiddo. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I leaned forward and slammed my palm on the horn. The sound echoed like an explosion. Seconds later, Mom appeared in the garage doorway, robe half-tied, eyes wide. What's going on? Richard turned to her like nothing happened. She lost something in the car. I was helping her find it. I didn't speak because I saw it now. Clear as day. Richard wasn't just looking for evidence. He was trying to erase it. And tonight, I got to it first. That night, after Mom went back inside, I didn't sleep. I stayed in the garage, Dad's watch charging slowly from the car's USB port. The screen flickered at 1% as I held it like a detonator. I didn't move until the file uploaded. Not to my phone, which Richard had full control over, but to a private cloud drive I created months ago for photo storage. I disguised the recording as a piano warm-up MP3. Then I saved a copy to a USB, which I taped under my closet shelf, just like Dad used to hide his backups. By the end of the week, Richard had convinced my mom to sign 3 forms. One was for temporary medical authority. One was for school-related communication. One was labeled emergency protocol authorization. He handed her the clipboard gently, with 2 mugs of tea between them. Just until things calm down, he said. You still have full say. This just takes some pressure off you. She signed all 3 without reading them. The following Monday, he attended a school meeting in her place. Nobody questioned it. He walked in wearing a button-up and a calm smile. He brought printed charts of my sleep patterns and behavioral irregularities, none of which were true, but all of which sounded clinical enough to be believable. That afternoon, I was pulled from class for an emotional wellness check. The counselor said my mother had signed off on everything. But when I got home, Mom looked confused. They said you were flagged for paranoia. Did you tell them that? No, She paused, looked down. I must have signed something. She didn't finish the sentence, because she didn't remember what she'd agreed to. Richard printed out my weekly schedule and taped it to the fridge. Every hour blocked out. Sleep, meals, homework, therapy, screen time. Structure helps recovery, he said. Mom nodded. She called it discipline. I called it surveillance. Jake met me behind the gym the next day. He handed me a charger with built-in encryption. I transferred the file to a different cloud folder. He didn't ask questions, but his hands were shaking. If something happens to me, I told him, don't wait, send it. He nodded. Didn't say anything else. When I got home, Richard was waiting. He held out my phone. Screen lit up with a notification. Unauthorized data transfer attempt. Flagged 4:18 p.m. Careful, kiddo, he said, smiling. You're getting sloppy. Then he handed the phone back and walked away. Like he already knew I had something. Like he was waiting for me to make a mistake big enough to end it. The next day, my teacher asked if I was sleeping, if I was hallucinating, if I remembered what I wrote in my last essay. Your mom's concerned. So is your stepfather. That word made me stop breathing. He's not. She blinked. Well, he is listed now as your educational guardian. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. I was being documented, boxed, categorized. Richard wasn't trying to erase me. He was trying to reframe me as unstable, unreliable, unsafe. Because then, if I spoke up, no one would listen, and he knew it. So I stopped playing by his rules. Started making copies of everything, photos of documents, videos of his new routines, notes from therapy. Even his voice, when he thought no one was around. This wasn't grief anymore. This was war. And I was done waiting for someone to save me.